Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi and today we have a very exciting team report from the biggest Pokemon tournament ever, and we have the runner-up from the biggest tournament ever. We've got Zach Weed. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the channel. Coming on the channel a second time this week. Of course, you were on Tub Takes a couple days ago to talk with Alex, and I was still in Europe. But now we get to talk about something really exciting, which is, of course, the team that you used to get second place at the European International Championships. And I, for one, am very excited about this because we got to work together on this team. Me, you, Justin, and Andrew all worked together to build this team and that you used. And so I get to do a little more talking than I normally do in the team reports. But first, before we get into the team, for those who don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I started playing VGC around like 2022 as a senior. Went to one Sword and Shield event, kind of got hooked from there, and then just started playing more often. Got like win in our regional win in seniors, and then in 2024 went up to Masters. Been pretty consistent ever since, and I would really say this past year has been kind of been a turning point. Been getting a lot more consistent with the of course Vegas and now this.
Yeah, you were coming off of a second place finish at Las Vegas Regionals, and I think you said you got the travel stipend to the European Championships. Would you have gone to EUIC if you didn't get the travel stipend?
No, absolutely not. So I travel with my family a lot, and it would have been very hard to justify going to another continent if I wasn't getting paid for it.
Yeah. And so really, it's really cool. And I mean, damn, you got second place at a regional, going into at that second place at an internet. A really strong season. I'd say a breakout season. And yeah, it's really exciting to see. And with that, I guess let's talk about the team. So this is, of course, the team that you used. But the team itself has a pretty long story, and this is where I get to do my stuff. And so sadly, the original creator of the team, 45 Mice, Justin Knox, could not be here tonight. He was busy, but he back in December, he tweeted this out. He said he's not going to Toronto or any event soon, but he's a team that he feels really good with, and anyone who wants to hit him up should hit him up. And I was like, yo, I don't know what I'm going to use for Toronto regionals, or Merida regionals, both of which I was going to. I had a few different things I was considering, but I'll take anything. We'll see what comes up. And so I reach out to Justin. He's a good friend of mine. And he sends me this team, which looks very similar with some notable differences to what you ran. And so I'm going to talk us through the process of how we got from this to what we ended up using at the European Championships. Although I should say that this team itself, these 6 Pokemon, are also very similar to the team that I think Justin Karras used to get top 4 at, I want to say, Vancouver Regionals. Is that right? In the last Reg F?
It was Orlando, I think, like at the very end.
Orlando Regionals?
Yeah.
Hold up. I can pull that up too. So yeah, Justin Karras used this team at Orlando Regionals, really, I'd say, formalizing what the Psyspam archetype has looked like throughout this second edition of Regulation F. So not to say that Justin came up with this idea totally on his own. Of course, 5 of these Pokemon are very similar to what Justin Karras ended up sorry. Not to say that Justin Knox came up with this idea totally on his own. It's very similar to what Justin Karras ran at Orlando Regionals. But Justin Knox, 45 Mice, sent me this team. And we had been chatting. We had been working together. And I said a few other people were looking at the team, had considered running it at Toronto. And the main change that we made before Toronto was we switched off of the Ogerpon Wellspring to Ogerpon Heartflame. There were several other EV spread changes that we will eventually get to, since most of the EV spreads were pretty similar moving forward. But the main thing here was that when you have an Urshifu, and especially with an Assault Vest, and you had an Ogerpon, they kind of fill the same role. They do a lot of the same things. But basically what Justin said was that, hey, Tornadus, Landorus, Iron Crown, and Didi is crazy. Those 4 Pokemon are such a strong mode. They create such strong pins on their own. And also, he basically said that Regidrago sucks, and he really wanted to replace that slot. And I'm reading from what he told me, told us just now before we started recording, that he said that he wanted to run Landorus Therian, because that's a question that I keep getting. Why run Landorus Therian? Why Landorus Therian? He said he wanted to put Landorus Therian because he wanted something on the team that threatens Raging Bolt and Incineroar, and also something that still continues to hit fairy types, because Raging Bolt very often turns into a fairy type as well. And then, so Landorus not only provides all of that, but also it gives Intimidate, which is really good with your Iron Crown, especially good when you have Calm Mind, which the original version did not. It gives you Pivoting, allowing you to play a more positional game against the balanced team that is everywhere. And yeah, that's kind of where we started with. But really, we when Justin was using the team, we were, and I was watching his replays, we were just doing Tornadus, Landorus, Iron Crown, and DD in some order almost every game, and the Urshifu and the Ogerpon really for mix-up options. And so, yeah, the Ogerpon ended up turning into a Hearth Flame, but I did run this team pretty much as is, with that one big change at Toronto Regionals. I went 8-4 at that regional. I made day 2, and then lost my last 2 rounds of day 2. And actually, funnily enough, I played, I think, the one other person at the tournament who was running the team, which was John over here, and lost to him in day 2, and he also went 8-4. But yeah, he told me everyone else that was on the team switched over back to the Regidrago version out of comfort, and so it was really just me and John running this team. And after that tournament, I'd seen that Ethan Trejo had top cut this tournament with a very similar team, but with the Calm Mind on the Iron Crown, and that was when I started looking at Calm Mind. I had reached out to Ethan. We talked a lot about his matchup spread. Reached out to Fede Campo, who had also used a Calm Mind Iron Crown at this tournament, and I also reached out to Michael Zhang, who had run a combined Iron Crown at Vancouver Regionals 2024 and top cut with it back then. I was just talking about it, and both Fede and Michael, who I both hold in very high regard, said, combined Iron Crown is kind of bad right now. It just feels bad. It's not very good. And I said, okay, well, Ethan was really talking it up, but if Fede and if Michael are saying it's really bad, it's poorly positioned right now, I'm not going to use it. I'm going to stick to it. I ran the team at Merida Regionals a week after Toronto, with almost the exact same team. The only real difference here is that I ran Choice Scarf on Urshifu instead of Assault Vest, which didn't end up doing too much. And I went 6-4, and made D2, got 30th place. Not the best performance, but I really want to highlight that I think the team has been good from the beginning. I'm just not very good at Pokemon. I feel like there were multiple losses at each of these tournaments where I just did not play very well, or my opponent outplayed me, and there was a lot of room for the team to do better in the hands of a better pilot. And that's where Zach comes in. He is the better pilot. And so, Zach, tell me, when did you start using this team, and how did you find this team?
Yeah, so Justin also sent me this team like way back in December at the beginning of Reg F. We were kind of bouncing around ideas for certain stuff, and he's like, yeah, I think Lando Iron Crown is really strong. And I was like, oh, okay, that looks neat. I like played him against him on ladder once when he was using it, and I was practicing the team I was using. I was like, oh, that is pretty strong. But I ended up sticking to like a Flutter Darker Shifu team for Toronto. Went 4-4, didn't do very well. So then I was like, okay, something needs to change, and I need to find a new team. So then I started building some completely like insane teams. Like at one point I had Wheezing Iron Boulder in my builder. I was like, yeah, this might solve Regulation F. Did not solve Regulation F whatsoever. Turns out Iron Boulder is incredibly bad. So it was like a couple weeks out from EUIC. I'm like, man, I really do not know what I'm using. Like, this format just feels really bad. There's nothing that's good. And then I was looking through some teams. I think I might have been looking at the Toronto results, and I saw you're still using the team. I was like, huh. I didn't realize Audie was using the Lando Crown team, so I started looking into it a little more. And I messaged Justin. I'm like, "Hey, is the team still good?" And he said, "Yeah, I think the team is still good, but it might need some changes going forward." So I put it in my builder, and I was kind of looking at different ways to run it, and I kind of noticed that like the team has a decent amount of Incineroar hate already with the Landorus and Urshifu. So I said, do we really need Terra Blast here? So I threw on uh Calm Mind over Terra Blast. And then on the Urshifu, I don't know when I arrived to Sash over Scarf. I just know that I really like Sash Urshifu, so I think I also threw that on there just as something to try because I saw Jonathan Marston ran Sash at Birmingham, I think, to get top
Hmm.
16. So I threw those adjustments on it, played some games on ladder, and it felt like incredibly strong. Like I was like farming ladder. It was crazy. Like um I got 2 alts up to 1700s like pretty fast, and then I got another up to like 1600s or so, and like was very, very impressed about how the team played.
Yeah. This is so I found the original paste. I think this is the original paste that you had sent us in the group chat. Where we were asking, what are you on right now? Uh and yeah, like you said, had that taunt on Urshifu, which was something that Jonathan Marston had used to top cut Birmingham. And otherwise, pretty much the same thing. With a few EV spread adjustments that we can talk about. But
Hmm.
yeah. And then I think at that point, so at what point you said you made it to the top of the ladder? Were you locked into the team at that point, or were you still considering your options there?
At that point I was definitely locked into the team because nothing else felt nearly as good in testing than this team did. So I just figured, yeah, I might as well run this. This is the best thing that I could be running at the tournament.
Hmm. And so I've scrolled up to the top of our group chat. This was on the 27th of January, I believe. So a little over 2 weeks, about 2 weeks before the tournament. And so I imagine you've been running the team a few days before that, a little bit before that. But that's when we started working together, dropping ideas, past kind of ideating a little bit, sharing our game plans and whatnot. Um, so yeah, I guess over those 2 weeks, we went from here, which is pretty close to what you actually ended up running over here. And so with that, I think we could go into the nitty gritty about the team itself, the EV spreads, and the item choices, the move choices, all that. Uh, and so, like you said, you talked a little bit about why you ran Focus Sash on Urshifu. And of course, with Focus Sash taken, you had to run Covert Click or Tornadus. Do you remember what your Tornadus spread does?
Um, so think I don't remember specifically what it does. The speed stat is to outspeed Urshifu. It hits 150. Um, I think the bulk is enough to take Adamant Life Orb Surging Strikes from Urshifu. Um, I've historically, you can ask my friends, not been very good at making EV spreads. I'm very much a uh EV slider kind of guy, and this just happened to be fine. So I was just like, yeah, I'll just run it.
Makes sense. Um, I will point out, by the way, that I ended up running a slightly different version of the team at EUIC with the Sash Tornadus and the Scarf Urshifu, which I low key kind of still think is better. I have after watching some of your matches, I do think that the Sash on Urshifu is actually very important in the balance matchup. It seemed like, but yeah, I had some slightly different spreads here, but the main ones, the main guys, the four Pokemon that we had in common, did have the same spreads, which are of course Indeedee, pretty self-explanatory, right? We wanted to be Rocky Helmet, uh, that just felt like the best item just because you get to take Surging Strikes, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't think that we ever really considered another item on Indeedee. Zach, did you have any thoughts about the Indeedee or any changes that you would ever consider there?
Yeah, I mean, I know like you could get cute and run like safety goggles or psychic seed or something, but I think Rocky Helmet's too important for the team. Like, I think the Urshifu matchup gets way worse if you don't have something that is actually de-incentivizing it from clicking Surging Strikes. And it does also have good synergy with U-turn on Landorus, where you can bait a Surging Strikes into that slot, U-turn, and then force Urshifu to eat the Rocky Helmet chip.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then notably, there was a slight EV change between the Indeedee that had 44 speed def and just max defense. I think the speed def was to have a better roll into Blood Moon, which was not very common. And so I convinced everyone to change to max defense because it improves your roll into Roaring Moon, which is a lot more common. And actually, it's very, very important to be able to take a knockoff very consistently from Roaring Moon. And so I think you do just run max defense overall. And then the 4 moves also pretty self-explanatory. I for one really missed having protect, but all 4 of these moves felt so important that it just felt like you couldn't drop any of them.
For sure.
Yeah, and then of course the star of the show is the Iron Crown. Now I will say I ran a slightly different at the very last minute. I changed my Iron Crown and Landorus red. Just minorly different, so that the if I led Landorus and Iron Crown, I would give Porygon 2 a attack boost on download instead of a special attack boost, because that was a lead that we didn't do often, but it was a mix-up option into Porygon 2. But this is pretty much the same thing. The main thing here is that originally we kind of I think Justin originally ran 4 speed. You really want to be a bulky Iron Crown. You either choose between going bulky or going fast. And if you're going bulky, it doesn't feel like you want to invest in speed, but in fact, there were a decent number of max speed modest Raging Bolts, and therefore, I felt like outspeeding those was absolutely game determinative. If you felt like if you were slower than the Raging Bolts with your Iron Crown, especially if they have Snarl, it felt really bad. And so that was why we went up to 76 speed to hit 128 speed, outspeeding those Raging Bolts. And otherwise, you are the highest jump point for special attack, and then the rest is all dumped into bulk. The other change that we made was going from Terra Water as a defensive Terra on Iron Crown. Once you moved from Terra Blast to Calm Mind, the Terra type became purely defensive, and while Water was a really good offensive and defensive Terra, with Calm Mind, you get to pick a exclusively defensive Terra. And so this was something that Rajan suggested after he took the team. I had just missed top cut at a cup. We both missed cut at a cup the previous weekend before EUIC, and he was going to play the challenge, and I was going home. So he said, "Hey, can you give me your team for the challenge?" I gave it to him, and he was giving me some thoughts. And he was like, I think you could run Terra Dragon on Iron Crown, and have it really get all the resistances, resist water, resist fire, still neutral to ground. But Terra Dragon is so good into balance, and then once you get a Calm Mind off, you don't even actually care about the Speed Booster Flutter Mains either. So it's really just like Chen Pao, for example, which you're already threatening so heavily with your Iron Crown. So maybe you should just run Terra Dragon. And I thought about it, and I played a few games with it, and I felt like it was a lot better. And I really liked it. It also no longer gives you a weakness to Rillaboom, which can be tricky into balance. You don't really want to gain a weakness into Rillaboom. And similarly, you don't want to gain a weakness into electric moves from Raging Bolt. And so getting resistances there made this Terra Dragon on Iron Crown, I felt like it made it so the balance matchup was significantly better than it was with Terra Water, when I already thought it was a pretty good matchup with Terra Water. Terra Dragon, I thought, made me feel a lot more confident going into a field that I expected to have a lot more balance. But Zach, what did you think about the Iron Crown? And I guess more broadly speaking, how did you feel about running a bulky Iron Crown when I feel like a lot of people are running a much faster Iron Crown?
Yeah, so originally I was close to keeping the Terra Water for the tournament, but I saw you guys talking about Terra Dragon, and I figured that it was a pretty good choice for it, so I ended up just locking Dragon without much practice. But it does feel like the best choice for Crown on with this set in Calm Mind, because there's a lot of different balance teams that have like 1 to 2 solid ways to hit um hit crown post Terra. So if you just remove the problem pieces, there's a lot of situations where you can just say like, okay, I remove the Fluttermane, I remove the Chien-Pao, I remove the Raging Bolt, and you just checkmate with Calm Mind, or with Calm Mind Terra Dragon. And I think running a bulky spread is like very, very important for Iron Crown. I've seen some people run like the super fast, like max speed, modest Iron Crowns. I'm not gonna lie, I think those are just terrible. Because to me, Iron Psyspam is like the damage trade team. Like you're looking for like more favorable trades than your opponent because expanding force just like nukes most stuff. But if your Iron Crown can't live anything, then you're not really getting super favorable trades a lot of the time. Like I played one Iron Crown in the tournament where I got up a Calm Mind and then Tachyon Cutter was just +1 Tachyon Cutter was just doing 50% to their Iron Crown. Like I don't really enjoy um running not very bulky Iron Crown. And I will say the one thing that um we should point out is that a lot of people did expect me to be our speed booster when I played it in the tournament, and I think that does really like I think that really is what sets the team apart, and like um or the set and the team in general apart, is that Calm Mind on special attack booster plays a lot differently than Calm Mind speed booster, because I think the reason like a lot of people were telling you that Calm Mind Crown wasn't very good is because it was Speed Booster, and Speed Booster you like need the Calm Minds to do damage. Like like Speed Booster Crown without a Calm Mind is just not it. It's not doing enough. But this Crown with Special Attack Booster, you can pretty much play it like a normal Crown most of the time. And Calm Mind's more like a punishing passive turns kind of thing than more than anything. It's like you don't rely on the setup, but you still have that option to set up, and it gives you a lot more versatility with the team and like the way you can play your crown.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what I liked about it is that, like you said, when we were talking about it, a lot of people expected you to be speed booster. Um, and we have enough ways to hit because Landorus is so good and because Urshifu is so good. We already have enough ways to hit Incineroar. And unless they're a Selfvest, they honestly can't really take attacks from +1 Iron Crown very effectively. Anyways, not to mention on top of taking chip damage from maybe Bleakwind Storms or Ivy Cudgels or whatever, right? They're gonna get worn down really quickly. And with a defensive Terra, they don't actually hit you with knockoff or flare blitz at all, basically. So you can just kind of wait them out. Um, adding to I guess the discussion, because I had played a lot more with Terra Blast going into it. What I really liked about Calm Mind, one is that it just spikes some matchups. Like it is unbelievable into the Iron Crown mirror. It makes the Psyspam mirror so much easier because they never get to leverage their crown into your crown at all. Similarly, like into Hard Trickerum, I had a game in the UIC where I took a Eruption plus Dazzling Gleam with Terra Dragon at +1 Spadef just like comfortably. Because like why not? You know, like that it just makes the Hard Tricker matchup that much easier. It is really good into Porygon 2 Ursaluna, because notably just with the booster energy you don't KO Ursaluna. And so you aren't threatening it. You need to get some chip damage on it. It's a little tricky. But if you get a Calm Mind off, now you're all of a sudden not only threatening the Ursaluna, and you live an attack from Ursaluna consistently, but you also are doing way more damage into the Porygon 2 and winning those damage trades. And you can even like power through Cresselia, for example. So it made that matchup a lot easier. I wouldn't say it spiked that matchup, but like it made it a lot easier there. And then balance, because balance is very slow and grindy, and they can play very passively, and they can get defensive switches and click fake out and play very slow game where you're just trying to throw damage into them, which isn't actually very effective. But all of a sudden, if you can call them out on one passive turn and get a Calm Mind off, your Iron Crown is so much more threatening. And on top of that, all of a sudden it can go for blow for blow with those Calm Mind Raging Bolts. So now all of a sudden, Raging Bolt getting a Calm Mind off does not mean that your Iron Crown is not doing damage to it, because you can get your own Calm Mind off and match damage and actually outpace it that way as well. And so Calm Mind really changes the way the team plays, and the team really felt so much stronger with Calm Mind on it, having run Terra Blast, which was okay, but I really felt like it was a little win more. And yeah, the special attack booster Calm Mind made so many matchups so much better, in my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah, it threads the needle against so many matchups, especially like P2 Ursa for me, especially with the focus sash. I would always just lead like you get you just get taunt or calm mind, and calm mind just punishes like every single super passive turn that they can take. It really makes it a much more threatening piece than um Terra Blast would, because without it you're forced to just click attacks, and don't have nearly as much reach as you can get with Calm Mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then did so moving on to the Urshifu. Like you said, Sash Urshifu was a little bit of comfort, and we did see Jono run taunt on his Sash Urshifu. Uh, I personally didn't feel like taunt Urshifu was actually that important into Porygon 2 or into Ursaluna teams, be it Porygon 2 or be it into Cresselia. And I felt like that was the time that I would want to click it the most. Did you get a lot of mileage out of taunt, or would you? I know you have an EDD on the team, so maybe Aquajet doesn't make much sense either. But how did you feel about that choice?
Um, to be completely honest, I only played one P2 Ursa over the weekend, and I don't think Taunt came up in one of the games, but didn't really after that. Um, I honestly locked in the Sash because, like, well, not only was it comfort, but by the time you guys were talking about going back to Scarf, that was about like a week before UIC. I didn't have much time to test it, so I just ended up locking this set and seeing how it went. Um, I definitely wouldn't call Taunt bad. Like it it definitely was good, like team sheet pressure, and into um into P2 Ursa. It did also like still help a good amount, but I honestly didn't end up clicking it that much this weekend. I will say another good utility of it is that it's good at shutting down Amoonguss, because sometimes Amoonguss can be a decent bring into the team if it can be played right or it's on the right team, but Taunt pretty much shuts down like any chance they have of leveraging Amoonguss into the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's makes sense. The other thing that you got to do that I didn't get to do was run Stellar on Urshifu. And I can think of one matchup that comes up in a lot. But yeah, how did you feel about getting to run Stellar on Urshifu?
Um, to be honest, Stellar Urshifu was phenomenal into the balance matchup. I realized as I was playing the tournament that into like the Icy Wind Chien-Pao balance teams, the real win condition is not Iron Crown. The real win condition is Urshifu. Like there is so many scenarios where um both the Focus Sash and the Psychic Terrain just pretty much always guarantee that your Urshifu is getting some sort of value on the field. Like and especially running Stellar, you can get the kill onto Chien-Pao, and then later in the game, line up a kill onto Rillaboom, or if they drop their defense with Urshifu, you just check it with Stellar close combat. Like there's so many positions where you need both those boosts, and leveraging like both those like nuclear moves into balance with all the layers of protection that you have was honestly probably what I liked about like the most about running Urshifu or Sash Urshifu this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then one other matchup that I think you might have played once. That I imagine it came up in, at least in testing, was into Rain, where I felt like my Rain matchup in practice was absolutely abysmal, but having the ability to threaten that one shot into Archaludon in the end game, I imagine, um, and also not only that, but live one Electro shot, or one Hurricane, or one Moonblast. Seems like it must have been really, really valuable in the Rain matchup for you.
Yes, I did end up playing Rain once this weekend. I played against Tom Winter in day 2, and Sash Urshifu was very, very good into that matchup because I just got to lead Urshifu Iron Crown and pretty much answer anything that he could lead with the team. Although, to be honest, he did play it very creatively. He leveraged the Throat Chop Chien-Pao very well, but just having the extra consistency and knowing that you can live Electro Shot or Hurricane lets you be able to play it so much more aggressively into this team.
Yeah. And so that's the one thing where, in hindsight, like I said, I really did like Scarf. I like the fact that I could go a little faster with that Pokemon and have a little faster mode. But those two matchups that you talked about really sold me on Sash. Now, in hindsight, a little too late. But yeah, that's a really compelling case for that. We talked about the Tornadus. I did have one person ask me, did you need Rain Dance on Tornadus? And I guess my answer to that mostly is that there's a lot of people EVing for Terra Water Surging Strikes. And Rain Dance is a bigger multiplier than Terra Water on Urshifu. And so being able to consistently threaten things with that did feel like it came up. But Zach, how did you feel about the Tornadus as a whole? And then also the 4 moves on it.
Yeah, the Torn for me was really good. Rain Dance, I think, is the best move on it overall, because like pretty much everything else is gonna want to click. It gets shut down by Psychic Terrain, so it's generally not very useful. Like the Urshifu already has Taunt, so that's covered. You don't really need another one. I don't really know what else you could run on it. Like Icy Wind could be neat. That could be something to consider in the future. But honestly, Rain Dance was good both to like juice up the Urshifu when needed, and also like it was a pretty good defensive tool in some matchups. Like I clicked it 2 games in my top 4 set, and it was really good to both weaken the Ogerpon Ivy Cudgel and also to make Bleak Wind 100% accurate, which is a nice thing in some scenarios. But to be completely honest, Bleak Wind Storm very much scares me as a move. Like I am not a big fan of the 80% accuracy, so I tended to try to avoid bringing it when I can, unless like I really needed to against certain matchups. But like when it did come, it was very good, and it hit all the Bleak Winds that it needed to, so it did well.
Yeah. That's one of those things about this format that you just need to. You sometimes in a high power level format, you need to hit your moves, and yeah. Also that being said, like you said, Rain Dance can lock up those end games, whereas you maybe do need to connect to Bleak Wind, or you're going to need to connect to Bleak Wind later on in the game, and you can click Rain Dance a little proactively to guarantee that and make it a little safer. But yeah, you do have to click Bleak Wind, and a lot of times, I feel like when I was leading Torn into Torn, a lot of times turn 1 we were both clicking Bleak Wind to each other, and it was just like, okay, we'll see what happens. So it can be very volatile, but that's just how the format is.
Yeah.
Then the Ogerpon. This is so I know originally you were running. I think originally you were running close to you were running Adamant. You were slower Ogerpon. And I had convinced you to run a little bit of a faster Ogerpon to run max speed, and that's because I do dynamic speed tiers where we see what percentage of each Pokemon on Pokemon Showdown over the course of the last month is running what speed stat, and just a tremendous number of people are running max speed Ogerpon. It's just super, super common. And so to me, it felt like and not just Fire Pond anymore, but also Water Pond. And one thing that I think the team can struggle with on occasion is a Terra Water on Water Ogre Pond. Because all of a sudden they could take Iron Crown attacks better. The Urshifu no longer really powers through them. They no longer take Bleak Wind Storms nearly as much. And in fact, one of the reasons why I wanted to run Sash Tornadus over Covert Cloak is because I wanted to outspeed Ogre Pond and hit them with Bleak Wind Storms. So Terra Water not only does that, and so I felt like our Fire Pond was an important part of beating opposing Terra Water Ponds if you force the Terra. You can also, for what it's worth, just Earthquake through them and set up your Tornadus Landorus, and once they burn their Terra, then all of a sudden Earthquake hits them for a lot more damage. But at least being able to, at the very worst, speed tie them and go for a Woodhammer into Terra Water Ogre Ponds felt like a very important case for running max speed to me. And my philosophy with Fire Ogre Pond is just that if you need the damage, you can Terra it. You don't need to Terra it. At the end of the day, a lot of the time, the way you play the team, one of the main modes of this team is Protect the Crown, where you are just leveraging your double redirection to get a Calm Mind off and to be able to sweep the team with your Iron Crown. And so the bulk is really nice, especially to take attacks from Urshifu. This is EV to take I believe, Terra Water Surging Strikes from Urshifu. And so having max speed and a lot of bulk meant that if you needed the damage, you could just Terra and get the damage. But otherwise, you were consistently living attacks, consistently being able to help your Iron Crown set up and win the game with double redirection. And so that was the reasoning for the Ogre Pond spread and the Ogre Pond moves. Zach, how did you feel about the Ogre Pond? Any thoughts about that?
So at least for me and the way I played the team, Ogre Pond definitely felt like the sixth Pokemon on the team. Like, it definitely wasn't bad, but it didn't come to very many games. I think I brought it to maybe 4, including the finals. Because for me, there was, like, I did kind of want to use it as an offensive piece at times, but with the current spread that we're running, it's not really doing damage when you're not tearing. Like, I've had games where Terra Steel Urshifus have lived Ivy Cudgel, or Rillabooms live Ivy Cudgel. But I will agree on the speed. It was definitely nice to have Max Jolly, because the team as is can sometimes suffer by having a kind of low speed ceiling, and just trying to maximize what speed ceiling you can get on the team is probably important with this Ogre Pond. The bulk was also nice. We did see in finals that my Ogre Pond took a Moonblast Surging Strikes, which did flip the game a lot. I think as a pure redirector piece, I think it did its job well. Like, for what it needed to do on the team, it did it very well, but I found myself not particularly bringing it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was definitely the sixth Mon of the team. It was the Mon that I brought the least as well. And I think there is an argument in hindsight to maybe go max speed, max attack, and just say that when I'm bringing it, I am going to do big damage into it. One matchup where I felt like I did really need the Fire Pond was into the Galarian Moltres team that was popularized by Dorian, I believe. That team, I did feel like we kind of struggled. Maybe with Calm Mind, it was less of a problem, but kind of struggled to hit the Moltres at times. And so being able to Terra Fire and kind of power through that team felt very important. And again, they do have a Water Pond, and so you get to Woodhammer that as well. That was the one case. That was the one matchup off the top of my head where I was like, I feel like I really need the Fire Pond. Although, like you said, it is really nice to hit Urshifus and various other things, and it was kind of a mode in and of itself at times.
Yeah.
And then last, and certainly not least, in fact, I think the star of the team, not the most important Pokemon of the team, but the Pokemon that I think a lot of people are drawn to as the most unique choice, Landorus Therian, back from a bygone era where it was everywhere, and now everyone is on Landorus I. In fact, Dimitri, an Australian player, a good friend of mine, was actually on these exact same 6 Pokemon with the Landorus I, and he cut Auckland and Sydney regionals with it. And I was chatting with him about it, and And I watched him. I was chatting with him. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? And he said, "Nah, I think Landorus Eye is a lot better." And then at Sydney Regionals, I watched him lose in top 8 to a Combined Raging Bolt, where his Landorus Eye did not do enough damage to the Combined Raging Bolt after it had set up. And I didn't want to say I told you so, but then of course Zach, you actually proved me right, and he DM'd me afterwards saying, "Damn, I guess you were right. Landorus Therian was the play." We talked about why Justin had originally included it. Tornadus with Landorus was such a strong lead because you can just click Tail with Earthquake. You create really strong pins. You with Iron Crown and Intimidate turned out to be so much better when you have Calm Mind on Iron Crown. It means that all of a sudden your Iron Crown is so much harder to knock out. And I don't know if this Iron Crown works nearly as effectively if you don't also have an Intimidate on the team. And so I thought that this Landorus was really cool. The EV spread, like I said, I tinkered with it a little bit. Like it turns out the 12 defense doesn't actually do anything. It was semi-arbitrary. It was what Justin had sent me originally with a little less speed. And I said, no, I want to run max speed because hitting 157 speed stat is really important. A lot of things hit 156 speed stat, namely Hisui and Arcanine at max speed. And then also, if you look at the data, a lot of Pokemon, a lot of Ogerpon especially, are EV'd to hit 154, 155 speed, 156 speed even. And so if you're Landorus, that speeds your opponent's Fire Ogerpon or your opponent's Water Ogerpon, that matchup becomes so much easier. And now, all of a sudden, I think people might have to go to 158 speed on their Ogerpon because of Uzak. People are going to have to start speed creeping that a little bit if they want to go bulky Ogerpon. Because, yeah, that felt like getting the jump on opposing Ogerpon felt so important. And then the rest of it is kind of arbitrary. Like I said, I ran a slightly different spread to give with a little more special defense to give Porygon 2 an attack boost more often. This, I believe, if you Terra, should always live a Terra Water Surging Strikes, is I believe also the calc there. I might be mistaken, but it wasn't Urshifu calc when you Terra. And then the rest is attack dump. But there wasn't any like specific numbers that you have to hit on the Landorus, I think, other than max speed feeling very important to me just to get the jump on some of those Ogerpons. But Zach, what did you think about Landorus and about all the choices that you made there?
Yeah, I think the Landorus definitely adds a completely new dimension to the Psyspam teams because I'm a very avid Regidrago hater. I think that mon is so linear and takes so much work to make it like even like decent, like with all the fairy types and like everything being faster than it. There's so many matchups where you just can't bring in, or there's like it gets so little value. But Landorus helps the team in multiple ways because well, like we said earlier, Intimidate is super valuable into helping Iron Crown set up, or just having stuff live attacks more often. Like it's not like super intuitive, but having an Intimidate on a pretty offensive team like this is like very valuable because it lets you run stuff more. It lets you get away with running stuff a little less bulky, so that you can actually live stuff after Intimidate. Like pretty important for me a couple times is like this team can be pretty weak to opposing Ogerpon Hearthflames a lot of times, especially when they Terra, and having the Intimidate to counteract the +1 from Terra really helps you control that piece a lot more. And the max speed Jolly is also like I think it's correct because I outsped pretty much every Landorus I played this, or a Lando I played this weekend. So that let me just click Rock Slide like when I led Lando Tauren into like opposing like the Ursh or the Flutter main offense teams, like the Flutter, Ogerpon, Dark Ursh. I would very often get to click Rock Slide Bleakwind into their Lando Eye. Outspeeding opposing Urshifus was also incredibly nice. Allowed you to have much cleaner endgames. And having the complementary Earthquake, Bleakwind mode, having another form of like super powerful spread moves that hits on a completely different axis from Expanding Force, gives the team a lot more dimension. So, like, all in all, I think Lando T is like a very good mon to condense both support and offense for the team, and just it gives it a lot more versatility in game plans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I loved it. It was awesome. It was so much fun to bring it back. Well, like the hitting, man, U-turn with Psychic Terrain, so nice. Like just like leading, not only leading Landorus Tornadus, but the other mode that I felt like I could lead into a lot of teams, especially if I didn't know what to do, was Landorus Iron Crown, and just say I am threatening an Expanding Force U-turn, and I can U-turn, and I can just do big damage, and you really can't switch in your Rillaboom safely. And like, I mean, if you switch it, so many people on ladder would switch in the Rillabooms and just take a fat U-turn plus Expanding Force and immediately lose the game. It was great. Didn't really happen in the tournament. I think people were a little better at the actual tournament, but on ladder, people would just do it all the time. U-turn hitting Ogre Pawns was really nice. Like, hey, yeah, Choice Band U-turn might have been the reason to run Landorus, honestly, over everything else. Yeah, and then I guess the last part of the Landorus was Terra Steel. It does kind of just make sense naturally. I think it maybe makes a little less sense now that we're not Terra Water on Iron Crown, because you could justify Terra Water on it as well. But really, you wanted to have something that resists ice. And I did actually find myself terraing it like reasonably often. It was probably my second most common Terra after the Iron Crown. Maybe more so at Toronto and Merida. But yeah, I actually felt like the Terra Steel being able to take an Icy Wind or take a Dragon move from Raging Bolt, because both felt like very, very relevant to me. Being able to take Grassy Glides or Grass moves felt pretty relevant to me as well. But yeah, how did you feel about Terra Steel on Landorus?
I definitely think it was the correct choice for the Terra. I didn't really find myself needing any Terra besides that. I mean, I didn't end up clicking it that much this weekend, although that's partially because the Stellar Urshifu was eating up the Terra like a very large amount of the time for me. But when I did click it, it was also it was good not only for ice moves, but also very good for the Psyspam mirror, because you get to resist Regidrago and basically everything that Iron Crown does, because they realistically should never be tearing their crown in that matchup, which means that you just get to resist everything that their Iron Crown wants to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with that, let's talk about how to play the team. We've kind of talked about some of the matchups a little bit already in going through how we built the team and why we built the team the way we did. But if you want to pick up the team for, say, Seattle or Houston regionals, or I think Seville regionals coming up, yeah, let's talk about what game plans you need to know, how you actually approach these matchups. And starting with balance, we've already talked about balance a little bit already. But one, balance is so diverse. It doesn't seem diverse. It's the same 8 Pokemon over and over again, but there's a lot of different variants to it. And then 2, it is just the most common team by far and the most successful team by far. So yeah, I'd love to hear more about how you approach the balance matchup and how the different versions of balance require different game plans from you.
Yeah, so I think the balance matchup really shows you how the different pieces on this team let you make really creative and varied game plans that can catch your opponents off guard. So into the majority of balance variants, I like to lead Iron Crown Landorus, because that puts on pressure to the Bolt immediately. It forces them to respect like a U-turn Expanding Force, and it also puts a lot of pressure on the Incineroar immediately, because a lot of the times what I like to do, especially into Safety Goggles or Rocky Helmet Incineroar, they would very often lead Incineroar Raging Bolt into my Iron Crown Landorus, and I would typically just Stomping Tantrum, Tachyon Cutter, double up the Incineroar, and most of the times it would just drop immediately turn 1, and I'll get a huge advantage off that. So I guess I'll go over the probably the most common balance variant right now, which is the Icy Wind Chien-Pao version first. I played this team a lot this weekend. I played it 4 different times. I think the Dragon Crown looks good here on paper, but there is a lot of different ways to pin it. So if you do tear it, I would save it for the end game. Very often my lead would be Urshifu Landorus. Because this is the most consistent lead overall, because it forces you to give up, or you give up very little with the lead, and it also covers for Raging Bolt plus Fake Out lead. But most times they would pretty much always lead Urshifu Chien-Pao into me and go Icy Wind Surging Strikes onto the Landorus turn 1. And what I would do is Terra Stellar, Surging Strikes the Chien-Pao, and just let the Landorus go down, because it's probably the least important piece in that game plan, because the Iron Crown and DD endgame is much more important. And if you can get rid of the Chien-Pao without sacrificing your Urshifu, you're in a pretty comfortable spot. Because then what you can do is just like, they typically have Raging Bolt, Rillaboom in the back, and that is almost completely free for Iron Crown. You can just refresh your Urshifu's Focus Sash, switch it out, and then after that, if you can get Urshifu back on the field safely without a speed drop, it's faster than everything, and close combat threatens everything, and so does Expanding Force. So you have normally have a pretty clean endgame with some sort of strong moves. So the major match of note, I would say, is to prioritize, pretty much always prioritize killing the Chien-Pao as soon as possible. Into the Fluttermane variants, like Paul's, I think that version is somewhat easier than the Chien-Pao ones, because Fluttermane has much less immediate pressure onto your crown compared to Chien-Pao. So you very often can just hard target the Fluttermane and have a pretty safe endgame with Terra Stellar Urshifu. Landorus Crown, again, is pretty good. Although, if they do expect that lead, something like Iron Crown and DD or Urshifu and DD can be good. You just basically want to make smart damage trades and get rid of basically everything that can beat the crown, and get rid of everything that can beat the crown, and then just endgame everything with the Iron Crown, because very common theme on these teams is that they have rather limited pieces to actually hit the Iron Crown. So if they can target or if you can remove the problem pieces, you can pretty much checkmate with them with Iron Crown.
Okay. Yeah. And then, so that's balance. I guess the next big matchup that, at least for me going into the tournament, I guess we should say, there were 4 matchups that I was really concerned about that I wanted to beat, balance being one of them. The second one was Ursaluna teams, namely Porygon 2 Ursaluna. Cresselia Ursaluna was a little bit around, and of course, Farigiraf Ursaluna also saw some play. I know you played one of those as well, but I think we touched on this a little bit, but quickly recap, how did you approach the Ursaluna matchup?
Yeah, so I think the hype behind the Ursaluna matchup going into UIC is partially what made this team so strong into the field, because I think that that is probably either the best or the second best matchup that the team has. Um, Calm Mind and Taunt on Urshifu help a ton into this matchup because you can either you can basically always lead Iron Crown Urshifu and into any sort of Trick Room lead. Just say, okay, you either get taunted by Urshifu or you let me set up a free Calm Mind, and well, typically they'll fake out the Urshifu, prevent the taunt, and that's pretty much always fine because then you can just either swap into Indeedee, swap into your Landorus, um, just start stalling Trick Room. And the most important thing to know when playing against Ursaluna is that +1 expanding force will always kill. Well, +1 psychic terrain expanding force will always kill Ursaluna, which is a very, very important thing to know. And especially when you don't drop to Earthquake when you Terra, it just lets you pretty freely damage trade and basically say, if you want to attack with your Ursaluna, you have to go down to expanding force after, and it prevents them from really making a lot of progress. And you can pretty much ignore the Incineroar, even if it's in Trick Room, because if you Terra, then you should always basically be able to 1v1 it with Calm Mind. You can eventually boost up enough, the Tachyon Cutter will eventually get you over the line. I will say, over time, as I played the team more on ladder, the P2 Ursa players started figuring out what to do in the matchup, and they would pretty much always lead Tornadus and Incineroar. That would allow them to have good pressure with Sharpbeak Bleakwind, and they can leverage their AV Incineroar and then Ursaluna and Tailwind. But what I pretty much always found in this matchup is that into that Tornadus Incineroar lead, well, you can double protect to stall the first turn of Fake Out, and then they pretty much never click Tailwind on the second turn. They basically always go for Bleakwind Storm and U-turn, or Bleakwind Storm U-turn or Bleakwind Storm Flare Blitz. So you can take advantage of that by just hard targeting the Tornadus, and you force them to respect that option. So you can Terra Dragon and double target the Tornadus with Tachyon Cutter Surging Strikes. That should always kill. And basically say, if they want to get meaningful damage on the board, then they have to sacrifice their ability to set Tailwind. And if they set Tailwind, then they're not really getting any meaningful damage off onto the board. So basically, if you can deny the Tailwind or deny the forward progress with Bleakwind Storm, you can pretty much always have a safe endgame trading with expanding force, especially with Intimidate. That is the other important thing about the matchup, that Intimidate helps the Iron Crown stay around a lot longer. I believe Crown should live a Facade when Terra'd at -1 from Ursaluna. Yeah.
Takes 84 max. Yep.
Yeah, I figured. So that is an important thing to know. So basically, you pretty much always get the more favorable end of the trades into that matchup, which is partially why this version of the team specifically is so positive into the team. In fact, a pretty funny story from Sunday. I was walking into the venue, and Juan Salerno walks up to me, and he says, "Oh yeah, I played you on ladder a bunch of times." And he like says my alt name or whatever, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you completely destroyed me every time." And so it was a funny thing, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, that matchup felt really good. Just adding to that, like you said, I maybe because I wasn't Sash, I think you said you would do this anyways. They lead Incineroar. I'm just daring him to click Fake Out because sometimes they just don't. Right? Like Incineroar players love not clicking Fake Out. It's their favorite thing to do is not click Fake Out. And so you said a lot of times people, especially on ladder, will just give you the Incineroar for free. which is crazy. And that, of course, also stops them from getting the free switch into Ursaluna, so they have to take an extra turn to do damage, to do really big damage, right? And so, especially with the Porygon 2 leads, that was something else I liked. You mentioned you always live the facade if they're at -1, which is nice. And one of the one thing that that made you hesitate about going Terra Dragon was that I was worried about that plus Ice Beam picking up, facade plus Ice Beam picking up the Iron Crown, whereas Terra Water you could a little more safely make that play. But yeah, that I think is still fine because, like you said, they were all switching to the Tornadus mode into that, and so it really never came up to the point where people were dropping the Ursaluna against me, because the Ursaluna just could not find any leverage. So yeah, definitely felt like that was one of the stronger matchups that we had in the tournament. And then the other matchup that I was concerned about, and another I touched on this as well, but I'll let you talk about your approach to this. Was the Psyspam mirror, because that really felt like it was picking up leading up to the tournament and continues to pick up now that, of course, you had this incredible finish. So how did you approach playing the mirror match?
Yeah, so when I said Ursaluna was either first or second best matchup, the Psyspam Mirror is the other contender for best matchup. Calm Mind completely flips this matchup. It basically makes your crown like unstoppable and completely broken, and then makes their Iron Crown in comparison like way worse. Um, it basically allows you to always lead Iron Crown and DD into the mirror, and then either like you look at their lead and say, is this lead weak to Expanding Force? Click Expanding Force. Is this weak? Is this lead good into Expanding Force? Click Calm Mind. A lot of the times they would either lead like they'd kind of they typically lead their own Iron Crown plus something like Iron Crown Ogrepon. Into that lead, you have very free follow me Calm Mind, just sack the Indeedee. Next turn, send out Tornadus, Tailwind Expanding Force. +1 Expanding Force just completely rips through their entire team. The Focus Sash Tornadus can be a little inconvenient, but it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things when you have such a better piece compared to their Iron Crown. I played the mirror 3 times this weekend. The first one, they had an Okidogi instead of an Urshifu and the fast Iron Crown, so they pretty much could not do anything. I think Iron Crown took every kill in that set, if I'm not mistaken. The second one, I played against Justin Tang, who I did lose to because he played it very well, and also he had some techs that did change it a lot. Not only did he have the Focus Sash Tornadus with Icy Wind, which also changed things, he had Life Orb Urshifu, which is a very good offensive piece into the team. It basically meant that it basically forced me to respect it in a lot of ways. You could pretty safely endgame it, and the Urshifu was also jolly, which meant that my Landorus Tornadus mode was just not very good because he would always have like a safe outspeed in the endgame. So it forced me to rely like a little too much on the crown at some points, where if I had to tear it for some reason, then the Urshifu could pretty much outspeed and kill everything. And then the third time I played it was against Roberto. It's not showing up on the report worm, but the matchup into his team I also think was good. I pretty much saw on stream how good that matchup can be in the first game. I just got to click Calm Mind, set up, just kill everything. Pretty much uncontested. Admittedly, the speed drops did help at the end of game 1. But well, they turned like a favorable endgame for me into a pretty much guaranteed endgame. And then And then you could also saw the mix-up that you can do in that matchup, which is the Tornadus Landorus, which in and of itself is a very good lead into this team because they also do not have good ground resist outside of the Tornadus. And especially because their Tornadus gets 2 KO'd by Bleakwind, it's very hard to stop the Landorus from getting value. Pretty much the only lead that they have, or the only leads that they have that prevent Landorus Tornadus from getting good value is Urshifu Tornadus, which is a really bad lead into Iron Crown and DD, or their own Iron Crown and DD, which is equally as bad because you can just set up Calm Mind with your Iron Crown and DD for free. So yeah, I think like the different modes and mix-ups, and especially the Calm Mind, is pretty much what made the Psyspam mirror so favorable for us.
Yeah. And those being the big 3 matchups and having favorable matchups into 2 of them is why I felt like this team was so well positioned going into the tournament. And with that, I want to talk about what I think is maybe one of the tougher matchups, but it was the 4th matchup in my list of things to prepare for, which was against Carrie's team, that won Toronto regionals, which I don't think you played. In fact, it looks like you dodged Roaring Moon entirely, but that was one of the Pokemon that I was really scared of, and Carrie's team being the team that probably used it the most, or used it the most effectively. I'm just trying to pull it up. But yeah, do you want to talk about how you approached that matchup?
Yeah, so I played a lot of practice games into that matchup, and it's probably one of the tougher matchups. I wouldn't call it like too bad. Like it's not like a horrendous matchup or anything, but it definitely is one of the harder, basically one of the hardest that you can play. What I figured out in practice is that Landorus Tornadus is a pretty solid lead into that, because at least in the first game, it allows you to have a lot of immediate pressure and basically just either click Tailwind Earthquake or Bleakwind Earthquake, depending on the lead, and just basically present your offensive pieces off rip and just say, what are you going to do about it? Basically put the pressure on them to respond to your game plan rather than the other way around. The other lead that you can do is Urshifu Tornadus, which also is not a bad lead, but the problem for that is into Roaring Moon lead, which they pretty much always do. It becomes a terror guessing game. You basically have to call, are they gonna Terra Poison, or are they just gonna stay normal? But having that 50-50 in and of itself can let you kind of cheese the matchup sometimes. Although if it's like Roaring Moon Golden Go or stuff or something like that, they basically always get a favorable turn out of it, so it's not ideal. But either of those 2 leads are probably the most consistent options because they give you the most pressure on lead. Although I think you also had a game plan with your cheeky turn 1 play with Iron Crown and DD. If you wanted to talk about that at all.
Yeah. So my game plan into most Roaring Moon teams, not so. Here's the thing: I practiced against Patrick Connors, who built this team, and he played the team really, really well. And that maybe scared me a little bit. I also had the Scarf Urshifu, which I think helps a little more into this team because it gives you, it lets you outspeed the Landorus, for example. So I think the Scarf probably helped a lot there as well. Although I will say I did lose my very last round of VUIC against this team. So, only go so far. I still think it's a tough matchup. But yeah, my game plan I kid you, actually, I'll pull up. In Toronto, my winning in for day 2 against Lev. And then at Merida, my winning in for day 2 against Carlos. Different teams, but they both were Roaring Moon teams, and they both almost went the exact same way. which is that turn 1, game 1, I lead in DD Crown, and I click Helping Hand, Tachyon, Cutter into the Roaring Moon, and they always go for knockoff into the DD. Patrick in testing never went for knockoff into the DD, but yeah, they always go for knockoff into the DD, and they take the Rocky Helmet chip, and your DD lives the attack. And then you KO with Tachyon Cutter with the Helping Hand boost. And so you just get rid of the Roaring Moon, and they don't get speed control up, and then your Iron Crown can sweep the game. And so that was how both my win-ins at both these two regionals went, which was very funny. It is still a little trickier, I think, into this team. And in fact, I pulled this off game 2 in the in my last round at EUIC, and I still lost the game. So it doesn't always work, but yeah, I think that was my other little cheeky line. That I think a player like Patrick or a player like Carey maybe will understand that they don't need to prioritize getting rid of the Indeedee. The Roaring Moon is their win condition, and they can play it a little more conservatively with it, and win that way. But yeah, I think that's another line that you can get away with, and is another nice little mix up if your opponent maybe doesn't know their calcs as well, or kind of tries to greed the Indeedee can knock out when they really shouldn't.
Yeah, I think in general you can. I think the matchup gets harder the better the player on this team that you play against, because if they can properly if they properly leverage their pieces and realize what the best thing to be doing at a given time is with the team, it can get a lot harder. Just in general, I would say, as an overarching theme for the matchup, Psyspam looks good into it on paper, but it never really worked in my testing, and kind of just ended up being a trap and kind of a waste of 2 slots at times, especially because you just get out traded by Terra Steel Lando with Sandseer Storm and Golden Go and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just gonna quickly scroll through. Oh, I guess I should mention Dozo as another Pokemon, as another matchup that we should talk about. It looks like if you had, for me at least. First off, I'll say this: the Carey team did not do very well at UIC. I think Carey did pretty well with it, making day 2. But yeah, did not see a lot of it. And so it was, again, probably a good meta call that team was not nearly as common as the other 3 teams that we did expect to see. But Dondozo did do very well at EUIC with we see 2 in top cut. I'm gonna pull up Andrea's team, but to me this was the other matchup that I thought was really, really difficult. That we had to face, that ended up being a pretty prominent part of the metagame. Zach, how did you feel about the Dozo matchup? I think you played one too.
Yeah. So going into UIC, I was pretty confident about the Dozo matchup, because basically what I would always do is lead Landorus Tornadus, and with some combination of Pokemon in the back. It was either Urshifu Ogerpon or Iron Crown Indeedee. And into the Marcus Co build, which is what I expected to be most common. I would very often just click Tailwind Earthquake, and they would lead Weezing plus Fluttermane or Weezing plus Chiyu. And basically what this allowed you to do was they are almost never threatening a knockout on anything on the board. And you can basically just say, I either get a free Earthquake or get a free Tailwind, and they can't stop both. What a crucial thing to know is that if they lead Chiyu Weezing, and they're pretty much always timid Chiyu on these teams, your Landorus will always survive a non-Beads of Ruin overheat. The Terra Flying on Weezing does make it maybe a little awkward, but I don't think they ever really want to click that. So I played against Roberto using this team round 1. And he played it much better than any other person I've played against it on this team. I think first game he did like the wheezing, and I won. I won kind of easily, and then games 2 and 3 he switched to Chiyu Dundozo with Tatsugiri Dragonite in the back, which made it a lot tougher because Dragonite and because he could basically just hard target the Landorus or the Tornadus, and if I didn't have Tailwind access, then Terra Normal E-Speed and the Timid Chiyu can clean up in the end game because Timid Chiyu is faster than the Landorus, notably. But I will say I very much got bailed against Roberto because it was the last turn of Game 3. It was Landorus versus Chiyu 1v1. Terra Steel Landorus. Chiyu had its sash broken. It went for overheat and it missed, and I went for rock slide and it hit, and I won the game. So probably shouldn't have won that set, but that was the only dozo I played. So I think in retrospect, it is not as positive of a matchup as I thought it was if people actually play it correctly.
Yeah. From my testing, I went 0-5 on ladder from according to my pass arrests against Dozo, and I lost to it at Toronto. That was my third loss at Toronto. So yeah, I thought it was really tricky. But yeah, I think that it's a little scary that it's picking up in usage. Like I said, there's this ups and downs for the metagame. And then I know I want to talk about your tournament run, but I feel like we're just talking about all the relevant teams, anyways. The last team that I think is super relevant in the format. I guess the Fluttermane Heat and Arcanine team is around too, but I want to talk about the teams you actually played. Is the team that Pato used, the Gouging Fire Tinglu stuff that is pretty common, and of course you played in your win-in. So talk to me about how, and this one's a little different than the ones we expect to see. Maybe we'll see this version with Thunderous pick up a little more, but yeah, talk to me about how you approach this matchup and what you expect to do here.
Yeah, so I think this matchup is a little awkward on paper because double dark type is obviously very good into the crown mode, and then the Dragonite, especially with multi-scale, if you get some howls on it, can kind of sweep through the team, especially if you can uh pin the Terra Dragon on crown. The way this set ended up playing out is that I led Landorus Urshifu game 1 into his Dragonite Gouging Fire, and I just click Rock Slide, Surging Strikes onto the Gouging Fire. I basically just traded HP on Landorus for HP on the Gouging Fire. And notably, in both games in the set, Rock Slide missed the multi-scale D-Knight turn 1, which made it much harder than it needed to be. But basically, I would say that like Landorus is a super good piece here because there isn't that much on his team that can immediately threaten it, especially with the Urshifu that is like incredibly slow. And while like multi-scaled D-Knight can make like certain lines more awkward since you're gonna have to break it before you can really get through it damage wise. Being able to intimidate it does help keep it in check a lot. What I did did game 2, he switched to Dragonite Chien-Pao, and I led Landorus Iron Crown into that, and I just click Rock Slide Tachyon Cutter, or Rock Slide and then Tachyon Cutter into Chien-Pao. I didn't Terra Landorus because I said if you're clicking Ice Spinner into my Landorus, then you're sacrificing your Chien-Pao for it. So I figured the Terra wasn't necessary, especially if he's giving up the Chien-Pao just to remove it anyways, and especially because Landorus isn't even really the win condition into these teams. It's just the supporting piece for it. I was fine with giving it up. But basically, uh, the 4 he always brought was Dragonite, Chien-Pao, Gouging, Tinglu in some form or fashion, and then I always brought Urshifu, Landorus, Crown, and Didi in some order. And the main thing you're going to want to look for here is get rid of the Chien-Pao, obviously, whether that's a Terrastellar Surging or a Tachyon Cutter, and try to pin the Tinglu Terra, because in both games, I pinned the Tinglu with Terrastellar Surging Strikes and an Expanding Force, and that basically allowed me to just either kill it with Surging or Expanding. Although I will say, based on the rolls that I saw from game 1 of our set, I don't know if Terrastellar Surging Strikes one hit kills by itself. So you might need to like bait it out somehow, or make a call between Tachyon Cutter, Expanding Force. But I do know that Terrastellar Surging Strikes and Expanding Force with booster outside of terrain does kill the Tinglu.
Cool. Yeah. I found that when I played this matchup on ladder, I was just dropping the Psyspam mode entirely and just going for the other 4. This was a matchup where I felt like the Fire Ogre Pawn could Terra pretty consistently, safely. You get they have to lead the Gouging Fire if they're going to bring it, and then you can power through that with your Urshifu and your Landorus pretty consistently, like you were doing. And then yeah, I felt like the Fire Pawn could beat that. The rest of the guys, and that was a great way of getting rid of the Tinglu as well, getting your +1 Woodhammer off into it. But yeah, it sounds like, honestly, like you would think that the double dark team is a pretty bad matchup for us, but in fact, the fact that we had a couple different ways to get through it makes me going into the tournament, I felt pretty confident if I had to play this team.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, so those are, I think, how we play all of the most common matchups in the format. Of course, there are some other teams, like I mentioned, Keysweet and Arcanine, Fluttermane team, the UK Okidogi team that was picking up Rain, several other teams in the format. But yeah, we talked about a bunch of different matches that you have played at your EUIC run as well. But I do want to talk a little bit more about your experience at the tournament. And are there any highlight matches that you want to talk about that we haven't already covered here or on Tub Takes yet?
I would say like one of the most important things about my run was this whole arc with against the Icy Wind Chien-Pao team. As I said before, I played it 4 times throughout the tournament. The first time I played it was against Mao Harada. The first game, I think I tried. I think I played Landorus Iron Crown into it, or Iron Crown Urshifu, I think, and it was like a line that I tried to go for, or the line I had in prep, and it just did not work at all. So games 2 and 3, I was kind of just trying random lines. I was just like, sure, let's lead Iron Crown Ogerpon. Let's just try it. And I somehow won that set. And then like as I kept playing the team, and I played against Nick, even though I lost, and then I played against Tomoya. Each time I played it, I kind of learned more and more about how the matchup went, and then I think it culminated in my top 16 set versus Alex. The important distinction between Alex's team and the rest of the balance, the Icy Wind Chien-Pao balance teams I played, is that his Chien-Pao is insanely bulky. This Chien-Pao lived Terrastellar Surging Strikes from my Urshifu, which made this much harder than it needed to be. So I had to get extremely aggressive in some turns. So basically, by the time I played him, I had this very specific line, like I talked about earlier, where I gave up the Landorus in the first game, and then game 2, I'd always um, go for Tornadus Urshifu, and then hard focus the Chien-Pao. But that's when it lived the Terrastellar Surging Strikes, and I just kind of lost immediately. And then the third game, I played super aggressively around his. He went back to the Incineroar Rillaboom Raging Bolt mode, and then I played super aggressively around his Raging Bolt. I left Urshifu open in front of Fake Out like two or three times, I think. Um, so it basically just showed like in some of these balance matchups, you kind of have to get aggressive and make very disrespectful plays at times. But I think the good thing about this team is that if you can get those aggressive turns right, you are so heavily rewarded for it. Like removing a key piece with Terra Stellar or just opening stuff up for Iron Crown, just of how strong an Iron Crown endgame is. Getting those turns right is like so heavily so heavily favorable for you and can lead to a ton of reward. Um as for other notable matches, I'd say my other cut matches are also pretty notable. Uh against Davide. Um I knew going in that his Urshifu was Jolly, which definitely makes the matchup harder because now Urshifu is faster than Landorus. But first game I made some aggressive calls, got it right. Won, and then the second game he adjusted to the Landorus Urshifu, which I expected. And in that game I was very close to leading Tornadus Urshifu, but I didn't and got kind of blown up by Landorus Urshifu. And then the third game, I respected him going for that lead again, so I went for Landorus or Urshifu Tornadus, and he just went back to Incineroar Rillaboom Raging Bolt mode. So honestly, on that lead, I thought I was pretty much cooked from turn one, because if they're bringing Bolt, or if they're positioning Bolt as their win con off rip, then Tornadus is kind of just a dead piece into that team. You just spam Bleak Wind and hope something happens, and it usually doesn't. So I thought I was cooked, but I was somehow able to get like the get some good turns and position really aggressively, and uh thank God my Bleak Wind hit. The one time I really, really needed it to, and it clutched up for me. Um, so yeah, I think uh, and then like my top four, it was a good set. It was probably like the closest the Psyspam mirror ever has been for me, besides when I lost to Justin. Um, Roberto played it like probably as well as he could have, and yeah, I think that match just showed like or all the matches that I talked about in that match too, just shows like this team has like a very surprisingly deep bag of tricks that you can pull. And like I don't think I mentioned it before, but I guess I'll mention it now, is that I almost never led Iron Crown and DD except for into the Psyspam mirrors, because like a lot of opponents pretty much expect Iron Crown and DD off rip. And if you just lead one of your other offensive pieces next to it, you can leverage like a lot more pressure immediately than if you're just leading Iron Crown and DD and just putting a very uh one note uh one note linear pressure onto the field. So yeah, I would say those are some of my more notable matches that I played in the tournament.
Yeah. Well, that I mean, thank you. I think at this point we basically talked about nearly every single match that you played. Going through all the matchups, and so I really appreciate that. It was it it was a really, really incredible run. It's been a crazy, crazy season for you with 2 second place finishes this year at an internet and a regional, and so it's been really awesome to see, and it was really fun working with you over the course of the last couple of weeks. And I'm really happy that even though I couldn't do the team justice, that you managed to show off how strong this Landorus can really be, and how strong this concept is. And so yeah, I definitely recommend that anyone who is going to more Regulation F events tries this team out, because I think it's a strong contender in this format. At the very least, I hate to say it, but you probably should know how to beat it. I don't hate to say it. I'm not going to any more Reg F events. I don't care. But yeah, we got the rental code on screen, and we'll have the paste in description down below if you want to try it out. And with that, thank you all for watching. Zach, did you have any final words or shoutouts that you want to give?
Well, I'll just shout out the group that worked on this team. You, Justin, and Andrew, for really helping this team come together in the way that it did. I think I definitely would not have had nearly as good of a run if I didn't have such a great group behind it working on it, because I probably would not have known how to like find all these different lines and really how to play Psyspam in general if it wasn't for all the back and forths that we had, and all the really good development and pushing the team that we had because of the group. And then just shout out to everyone who was there for me during the tournament, everyone who helped me prep during the tournament. It was a bunch of people. You all know who you are. If you helped me, thank you very much. You're all super helpful.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you once again for coming on the channel, and congratulations once again. Second place at the biggest tournament ever. Really, really, it's kind of surreal. It's crazy to say. How does it feel?
Yeah.
Has it really soaked in yet for you?
Honestly, it is like it did not feel real in the moment, and it still does not really feel real. Like I was by the stage, or I was sitting like a little off to the side of the stage on Championship Sunday, hanging out with Andrew before we had to go backstage. And then I saw like all the pyrotechnics hit for like the junior finals or something. I'm like, oh shit, this is really happening. Like this is for me? Like what? it was such an odd feeling. Yeah, it still honestly doesn't feel real that I got to be a part of like a championship Sunday and like a international final. Like I didn't really think I would get to that point anytime soon.
Yeah, here you are. Next time you're winning, I hope.
Hopefully. I mean, for locals, it took me 7 tries in the finals before I got a win. Hopefully, that doesn't take me that long. Also, one more thing about internationals, and one more shout out. Shout out to the auto invite, so I don't have to play any more Reg F.
Yes, dude. It was so funny. You were 5-1 or something, and you were like, "Let's go! I just locked up my Worlds invite. I don't have to worry about it anymore."
I was so happy I didn't have to go to Houston anymore. Like if I lost at that point in the tournament, I'm completely happy. Like I would have been smiling ear to ear if I went 5-3. I would have been so happy.
Man, that's crazy. All right, well, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thank you again for coming on, and until next time, I will see you all later.